make sure.
Live now.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. This is the Node.js TSC Technical Steering Committee meeting for April 20th. We have a fairly light agenda. We don't have a full crew on for today just yet. We've been having some audio difficulties getting going here, so apologize if we run into any issues while we are underway. And talk about the, let's see, I gotta pull up the notes for the last meeting here. Talk about what we talked about. Last meeting on our agenda, we talked about the upcoming collaboration summit in Berlin. We talked about input on employer restrictions for the Tsc Director. It's also on the agenda for today to get an update on where we're at. We added Anna and Michael Dawson to the TSC. We talked about update on the copyright date and updating the copyright issues. We had a discussion about clarifying which people should be org owners. I don't think that issue is nowhere near to being resolved yet. Today our agenda is fairly light. Most of the items, or pretty much all the items, are review for previous issues. I don't think we have anything new on the public agenda. So let's start getting through it. On the board request, input on employer restrictions of Tsc Director, let's just get a status update of where the conversation is at. So this would be Michael or Bod. Can you give us an update on what's happening here?
So
maybe a quick
recap. So the recap is that there is this relatively strange provision in the bylaws that says that the TSC director the elected TSC director can't be from the same company as the gold or silver elected director. And the way that it's written is that it's written as a platinum member benefit. So it's not there as like a kind of check on interest. It's literally written as a member benefit, which is very strange, to say the least. So this came up in the TSC meeting, in the board meeting, because Rod and the gold director are from the same company. So one of them would need to step down once we enforce this. The board said that they did not want to enforce it until they got the TSC's input. There are a few options on the table. One is just removing this provision from the bylaws. If that's what the board wants to do, that's what the board chair would like to do. Denise Cooper is not a fan of this particular provision in the bylaws, to say the least. But before they moved forward with anything, they wanted to get what the TSC's opinion on this was.
What would happen if the TSC director was from that wasn't a member of the foundation at all?
Nothing. Be fine.
Interesting. So it's only gold and silver members, but platinum and no members. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like if it were about conflict of interest, it would be a very strange way to put that, because it would be like only if you pay enough money can you have this conflict of interest. So it's not about that. It's really just about like trying to provide another platinum. I mean, you have to remember that these bylaws are, from a template of a template of a template that started many years ago. And it's somewhat telling that we didn't even recognize this until this was a concern until like William found it buried somewhere in the bylaws.
So how much support would there be to changing this in bylaws in the foundation?
I think that if that's what the TSC requested, that would probably be what they would go for, being that that's also what the board chair wants. But I don't know which way it would go until there was an actual vote. But I think what they're looking for is that, like, they're going to look for a resolution to this issue so that we don't have a director not in good standing. And what they want from the TSC is what the TSC's preferred thing going forward. Like, does the TSC like this provision, or do they want to see it gone? Is the way that I would put it.
So how valuable is this to platinum members? Like, what are the other benefits to platinum members, and like how much are we taking something away if we would change this?
So obviously we just got a new executive director who's out there kind of selling and kind of figuring out ways to sell. I had a short discussion with him, and it did not sound like this was something that was going to really hook any particular members. That said, you know, until we kind of survey the existing platinum members that are there, we won't really understand how all of them feel about it. I mean, Denise Cooper is from a platinum member, and she wants to get rid of it. That's really like the only concrete thing that I have so far. But,
yeah, but I can speak up to that though, because there are other platinum members who have expressed even in discussion that that they like that provision. So it's and I think what I have to say here is that they're representing like on that board and they're representing their companies, right? And the reason that they want the TSC's input is because the members of the TSC have a very different, you know, have very different needs. So I think that it's probably not, I don't know how helpful it is to even consider like what, I don't know, is that really, like, is that what's important to the TSC in terms of like, I mean, what I'd say is there may be times where when we're having these conversations where what you all need may actually conflict and, you know, with this idea of a platinum member having this or not having this.
Well, we want platinum members because that, you know, supports our project and supports our success. So that we don't want to I'm just saying, like from the TSC perspective, that's something we have to think of. We don't want to do platinum membership.
I think it's like
to Tracy's point though, like they are like, we have an executive director that is looking out for what we can sell. We have platinum members that are looking out for, you know, what is the best thing for them as platinum members. What they need from the TSC is what is best for the TSC, not something that is sort of, you know, guarded against all of these other concerns that they're already looking out for.
So I want to add, this benefit to platinum members is also quite worthless to them if they don't actively pursue trying to put someone in that position. So like having it there is silly if you know, as a benefit. If Microsoft wasn't going to be like, Josh or Brian, we're going to promote you being that person, and like I don't think that's the attitude that I've ever witnessed in anyone there. So yeah, it kind of defeats even more of the purpose.
So let's, for the sake of just keeping this moving along, let's take just a quick straw poll. If the intent is to get the TSC's input on whether this particular provision should stay or be revised, how many here feel that it should be kept, that this provision should be retained? Just by a say aye. Or if you are having audio issues, put it into the chat.
And if you're an observer, please don't say anything.
Yes. Okay, now anyone who thinks that the provision should be changed, please say aye. I'll say aye.
I definitely say aye. But like, can you all hear me now?
Yeah.
I say aye, but I feel like I'm in an awkward spot here, and I've made my thoughts fairly clear on this issue already on GitHub. But I think this puts the TSC in an awkward position, particularly the kinds of people who would be candidates for this position. They're not most likely. They are more likely to come from larger companies because of the massive time investment it takes, and so yeah.
Yeah, I did what Rod said. Aye.
Any others? Colin,
I will. I want to ask again. Like, I really don't. I mean, my only opinion is kind of from Microsoft opinion, we have such a strong personal opinion, but I'm trying to understand what the benefit is to the TSC one way or the other. Like, what are the advantages to us or not? Whether, like, from the TSC's, like, discounting the whole platinum member consideration. You see what I'm getting at?
Well, we want to be able to like pick the person on the TSC to be the representative to the TSC that we collectively think
I see.
fits
So we
the
don't want
best,
any restrictions of our
regardless
stuff.
of who's on the board already.
Yeah, I mean, if the TSC had a problem with two people from the same company, then yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing. And look, I have sympathy for the platinum members here because, to be honest, platinum membership doesn't provide quite enough benefits to justify the massive amount of money they have to pay. But that's not the TSC's problem. As far as I'm concerned, that's the board's problem to figure out. If they need to find ways to make that either that amount of money more worthwhile, or make it not that expensive to mean that it's that dramatic, and not push, not use this as another lever to make it more beneficial. I mean, to be honest, I find it kind of gross that that the idea that platinum membership gives you a perk above others where you potentially could get 2 votes. I mean, if we're arguing about the 2 votes from one company, that's a gross perk for somebody that's paying a lot of money. So, let's either be consistent or not.
I think the one test of this would have been like, if it were a platinum member incentive and it were also good for the TSC, what would happen is that if somebody from a gold or silver seat got elected to the TSC and it forced their company to upgrade to platinum, that's not happening. Like we already kind of tested that in theory, and like Rod would just end up stepping down, and I can't imagine Nearform would cough up an extra $150,000 if one of their people were elected to it from like the silver side, and so like I just don't like the test cases that we have so far for this being something that could potentially push somebody into upgrading have not panned out, and they would essentially just end in the TSC having a lack of representation, like people that could represent them, depending on what happened with gold and silver elections, basically.
And to make it like, I know, and this is one of the reasons this is a little bit heated, is because it's live now and it involves people and companies. But let's take that off the table, because I'm not going to be in this seat for much longer. Like I'll be stepping down soon. Either and that timing is still up for discussion as there's another issue on the TSC agenda that we've got to discuss as well. But I'll be down, and this will be resolved soon in this current instance. So let's think about this for the next time this comes up, because if it's not resolved now, it's going to come up again, and it'll involve one of you or somebody probably who's on the wings. And it needs to be resolved in some form. And I don't want to see the next person in this position of having to have this awkward thing happening. And I certainly don't want to see this happen to one of the mid-tier companies that is servicing the Node ecosystem, because they're not as likely to be a platinum member. So you think about the Node Source, Nearform, Yield, these companies that are dedicated to serving the Node ecosystem, as opposed to the platinum companies, which are not. I mean, these are companies that are big enough to have platinum membership, but they also got their fingers in many pies. They're not dedicated to serving the Node ecosystem. They're dedicated to serving a bunch of ecosystems. So while it's great that we have them in, my heart personally is much more with these smaller companies that are dedicated to Node. So if it happens to them again, what do we think about that? What do we think about when it happens to Nearform?
Yeah.
What do we think about when it happens to Yield? I mean, this is the kind of way we need to be thinking about it, because it's going to happen again potentially.
I don't want to end up in a situation where we elect somebody to the TSC on this next cycle, Tsc Director position, and then there's some kind of change of employment or change of status that has absolutely nothing to do with the TSC. It ends up putting us in the same kind of awkward position, and it just needs to be where the TSC Director serves independently of that, based on what the TSC feels it is in its best interest. And if we, based on the straw poll, I think everyone is generally in agreement that this provision is not, at least in the TSC's interest.
Can I summarize that? I wrote it in the chat, but I just want to say it out loud that what I'm hearing from everyone, and I think I agree with this, is that the TSC needs to have flexibility to do what's best for Node technically. And we shouldn't be hamstrung by rules about the board. If what's best for Node technically is someone from Node source or Nearform or whatever it is, then that's what it should be. That should be the priority.
Yeah, so just to kind of put this to bed, it sounds like the consensus is that everybody agrees that the best thing for the TSC is for this rule not to be there. I do think that I think it's fair to say that there are members of the TSC that understand that if this is a huge benefit for selling Platinum memberships, that they're open to it, but their preference is not that. And I think that we can represent that to the board as a preference, but not a we're all going to table flip if you decide that this is really critical to selling memberships. Right?
I think that's a good characterization. Like it, ideally we can choose the best candidate for the job regardless. But if this is a big deal for some reason, then we do understand that.
Yep, that's my views exactly as well. And the other thing I think I'd add is this is what we're going to present, and if other people, especially the new executive director, thinks that upsell is important, then it's kind of their responsibility to sort of, I think, communicate that to us. That shouldn't be for us to discern what's best for selling membership, because that's not our area of expertise.
Yeah. Good point.
Okay.
I think we're gonna.
I want to keep the agenda moving on here. It's already almost half past. So, okay. So we can continue this if necessary, but I think Rod and Michael, you should have enough at this point to be able to take that opinion back to the board, and we'll leave this on the agenda so we can update on the next call where things are at. Next issue is TSC 195, the copyright date issue. I'm going to assume there's been no progress on this, given the history, but Rod,
we tried to schedule a legal committee meeting this week, but the times that worked for members did not work for council. So that's been deferred. I'm going to hand it over to Mark Hinkle to schedule more directly with them. Since this may happen while I am in Europe, I'm going to recommend that he pulls James directly a little bit more into it, since you're really familiar with the issue. So.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Related to that is it's not on this list, but the larger issue about the change of the copyright headers. I'm assuming that will also come up with that other conversation, so we don't have to discuss it here. But I assume that there's been no change. TSC 142 revised membership rules. Where are we at on this? I know that you were starting a vote, Michael.
Yeah, I need to count the votes, but that vote ends at the end of today, technically. So I should get something back. But the votes are coming in all yay, it looks like. So. Or yeah, I mean they've all come in yay. I just need to count them up and make sure that we make quorum. But nobody objective. It looks like it's passing the board.
Okay, just let us know when that goes through. Once it does, I'll be able to land that PR and go there. Let's clarify issue TSC 125. Well, before I move on, does anybody have any other issues with regards to membership rules? No? Okay. Clarify which people should be org owners. TSC 125. This is kind of a long-standing issue, and there's been a number of different opinions and takes on this. I know William was working on a bot that could take over some of the administrative tasks, but I know myself and Ben and at least the two of us had some issues on what kind of security permissions that thing would need to have and what risks that opens us up to. Anybody have any ideas on resolving this and making progress?
So I think I already stated this in the issue, but I think that we need to hold off on moving forward with any changes until the build working group that needs that secrets repo weighs in a little bit more heavily.
I think Johan did weigh in and say that he didn't think it needed to be moved, right?
He didn't, well, that's not the question. The question is like, could we move it if it made this problem a lot easier to deal with, right? Like, if we moved it, you know, is that an option for them? Would it break things? Would it make things horribly annoying? Like, would they object to us moving that in order to make in order to open up org wide to owners a little bit more without also?
But I think his point was he wasn't worried about that because, you know, the secret's already encrypted through a set of GPG keys. I think his position was fine. Right, like all the keys in there, you know, each of us have added GPG keys, and so like, you know, I can access the test one, but I can't access the other ones, and so people who don't have any keys wouldn't be able to access anything.
Okay, so in that case, then the only real issue is the security working group. So we just need to get them to weigh in. We should maybe set up a thread with Sam Roberts and the people that are doing the wider security group stuff, and see if we could maybe just consolidate security stuff into its own org. Because they already have some needs beyond just core. It'll be a little bit of a pain in the ass to manage because we'll need to keep adding like CTC people into this other org, but it could be better in terms of process at the end of the day. It's something to explore.
So okay, so the other side is William. I know I in particular pushed back a little bit on the bot work that you were doing. I would be very interested in seeing some more information on that work to see exactly what the permission requirements for the bot would be and how those, you know, how that bot would be secured, so we know what the risks are for actually automating some of those processes.
So can we focus on how to secure the bot rather than limiting its permissions? Because I think at the end of the day, what we want the bot to be able to do are the things that we don't want to give a ton of people direct access to. So I think by definition, what we want the bot to do is to take on a fair amount of permissions. It's really just a matter of like, how do we lock down that bot and keep the bot secure? Right?
So the permissions are documented in that thread, and there's only like one checkbox that it needs, and that's to be able to manage the members of the org. Which I believe also was the one that was needed for blocking users. And that was it. All other work, like commenting on issues and things like that, that's just not what this bot would be doing. That's what the other bot is already doing. So this one just had a very focused, very narrow task. And so that it could be isolated, and the build working group would, you know, take it inside their realm and lock it down, and it would do only the things the like 2 actions that it's made to do. Now, with that, there was some more discussion about what kind of things can you have as an owner of the org, and you know, there was that list that I posted there from GitHub that shows you, but what I missed is, I guess, and I think Ben has brought this up a few times, something about an audit log. And I haven't really seen that in any GitHub documentation. So
I thought I saw that in the list of permissions you pasted.
Yeah, maybe I just missed it.
I'm gonna go take a look because I thought when I looked there that was one of them.
So that would then be taken away. Like if we remove virtually all org owners, let's say, then Ben wouldn't be able to go look at the audit log and find out what happened, for instance. So we would have to, you know, it's this checklist of like what things are we using that would need to be replaced with another mechanism. And that audit log is something that was new to me, so you know I didn't consider it in the box. But of course, we can discuss any of these things in the checklist that would be needed.
Can we kick off a specific thread about the audit log and what to do about that, just to kind of isolate that discussion? Because I think that if we look at it enough, maybe something that we want to open up and make more transparent generally. So that could just be a good thread kind of on its own.
Anybody want to volunteer to do that? I'm not really an expert on audit log needs and uses and benefits. If someone else can volunteer, that'd be awesome.
Not sure if we're going to get too many volunteers, but we can definitely have a conversation. The main thing is I wanted to make sure that William, that you didn't feel discouraged or feel like that work wasn't valued because of the pushback.
I built it so that is there. It's a possibility. If it's never consumed, then whatever. But up until that point, it was all theoretical. We could build this. We could do it this way. So now it's there. It does work. Has a lot of tests written around it. We can certainly add more if we want.
So now I will say that we have used the audit log before. So we actually have used it before. So it's not something that we've never used, by the way. I know that we've had to refer to it a couple times.
I check it once a week, so just keep an eye on stuff. So okay, all right. So yeah, we can continue that discussion on in GitHub. I just want to definitely make sure that we see some more progress there. So I'll try to jump in and help with that as well. Moving on to the last official item on our public agenda. While we're going through this, if Jeremiah, I don't know if you can go ahead and post some on Twitter or the YouTube to see, start soliciting questions. Might be a good time to start asking for that. Okay. Community committee issue number 7, code of conduct for everything. Just a quick update on this. I don't think there's anything for us to decide, but what we had discussed previously was moving the code of conduct to the TSC repo. I have done that. We had the PRs, got all the approvals. I think I landed that. It was either earlier this week or late last week. So the code of conduct text itself now exists in the Node.js TSC repository. Now that code of conduct for everything issue on the community committee also had a number of other suggestions, such as packaging up that code of conduct so it's easier to reuse. So I think there's some remaining to-dos there. But as far as the TSC's actions of moving that out of the core repo, I think we're done at this point, and this issue could probably be taken off our agenda.
Well, there was still the idea of going through all the various working groups and repos and all of them that had it copy and pasted to remove that and reference the main one now. But that takes a volunteer to do that, and it is a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that work needs to be done, but I also think that work is something that can be spearheaded by the community committee. I don't think it needs to be spearheaded by the TSC.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we could probably just file that as an issue for someone diving in and doing that. That's a great way to be able to contribute.
I mean, will it seem weird to anyone that like something from the community committee is like tiptoeing over in TSC realm?
No, I think if they reference this issue, I think if they reference this issue and say like, hey, the TSC decided on this thing, this is just more of like cleanup. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to be precise. Yeah, that's my personal opinion. Sorry.
I think encouraging a broader range of doers across the org is a better thing in general, no matter what. So if somebody from the community committee wants to do it, then that's fantastic.
Yep, sounds great to me.
Okay.
Yeah, also these things are yours.
So that wraps the official agenda. The one other thing that I wanted to add on the public part. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask about 244, the TSC election scheduling. I thought that it was on the agenda, but it was actually just tagged with review, not agenda, for some reason.
Yeah. I got a couple of things to discuss, and that is definitely one of them. Cool. I'm just getting into it. So two aspects for the election, or basically the TSC director and TSC chair roles. As everyone's most likely aware already, Rod has delegated the TSC chair responsibility to me, but I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to kind of weigh in on that if they are comfortable with that, or if anyone else wants to put their name in consideration for the TSC chair role. Then what we should do is, speak up, and then let's have an actual election for that. If no one else wants to step up for that, I'm happy to fill that role until we have the next election cycle, which I think would naturally is the next part of the discussion, but currently scheduled for August. So that's the second part of the discussion.
So to be absolutely clear, that's only for the remainder of this term, which potentially is August or earlier, depending on the outcome of that discussion.
So I know it's kind of putting folks on the spot. If they want to speak up, you can say it now, or open an issue and we can decide it and discuss it more on the next call. So, but I want to make the opportunity available.
I'll speak up in favor of James, you taking over that role in the meantime. I think that's a great idea and makes sense given how much till now. So
look, and look, I know this is awkward because we're asking to do, you're being put on the spot, like James said. But if anyone does want to criticize this, feel free to contact me and critique. I'm more than happy to receive that. And I've done this. It's primarily for experience. I didn't think that an election just for delegation was necessarily the best way to go. This is more about making sure the work gets done efficiently and effectively in the meantime, since I haven't been doing that well. But please reach out to me if you think that this has been handled poorly and you're not comfortable doing it publicly. I'm more than happy to hear that.
And I'll just say, no one's going to hurt my feelings if you come up and say, "Hey, I don't think you're the right person." No, don't ever worry about that. Okay. Any thoughts on any other comments on that before I talk about the director election in general? So the other part, I don't have the issue immediately handy. So Michael, if you can maybe post it into the chat for everybody. So our last year when we did the TSC director election, we ended up doing it in August, but we ended up doing it late per the actual schedule. It was kind of an afterthought. Everyone was like, "Oh, crap, we need to do this." So if we followed the year cycle, then the next election for the TSC director and chair would come up in August. But Michael opened this thread to see if we wanted to move that up. And part of Michael, why don't I go ahead and let you explain a little bit more of the.
Sure. I mean, yeah. First of all, the timing that we ended up having is, I mean, technically we actually started in May, and I think maybe even the first meeting that Rod went to was in May. But because him and Bert were still trying to figure out who would end up being the TSC chair at the time, it wasn't officially made until June so that somebody could participate in the election so that somebody could vote in the board chair election. Now that the timing is basically just suspect in general, I think that the TSC should think about it as when do you strategically want to place somebody on the board, especially if you're having a new person come onto the board. And there's a couple things to consider when you think about that. One is that the work on the board generally, from January through November, just heats up. There's more and more and more kind of coming into the agenda as the year goes along. Things kind of culminate with a big conference in the fall, and then also all of the budget for the next year ends up getting approved in November. December is essentially taken off. In January, a new individual director comes on. In June, new gold and silver rep directors tend to come on. So this kind of gives you an idea of when the sweet spot might be for you to put in something new get them up to speed on kind of what's going on so that they can actually affect decisions coming into the budget towards the end of the year, coming into the conference, and have enough contacts on the board to participate in the board chair and board vice chair election as well, which happens in July.
And by participate, that means that voting, because we can't actually be chair or vice or anything.
Right. We can't run, but I will say that like the TSC, I mean the TSC really matters to the board, and the TSC seat really matters to the board. And I think that endorsements or advocating for a particular person by the TSC carries a lot of weight. You can't be there, but I think that the TSC's voice is really important in that election.
So I'll say that normally I'd be reaching out to the TSC privately anyway for input on those big voting things like the election of the chair and stuff, and I would hope that whoever comes next would do the same thing. But as we've discussed previously, and it's come up, I don't know if you guys have been included in the threads on this, but it's as board members, we are told that we have to vote on our own behalf, not on anyone else's behalf, which makes it so there's no you're not really even allowed to say this vote is from the TSC. It has to be a vote from that individual for legal reasons. So technically it kind of would be best if the person what I'm saying is that if I held this seat and was participating in that vote and then dropped off a month later, that is actually kind of awkward because I'm not reaping sort of the results of that.
Right.
As a board member.
Yeah. Also, I'll try to clarify what Rod said about representing yourself and representing a constituency. So like when you represent a class, you are fiduciarily bound to represent that class, but also like to the best of your ability to what you believe. So like you at the end of the day are responsible for that. Like you have to, even like engage in private conversations without necessarily talking to that entire constituency, and you are supposed to represent that constituency, but at the end of the day, like you can't go and survey them for every result. And in fact, sometimes you are not allowed to because you have to keep certain information private when it relates to like there's all kinds of kind of private disclosure stuff that we can't do or we can't release until later on. You have to participate in. So you're that's just to kind of clarify that.
So the decision that needs to be made at this point is that when do we want to have this election? So if we want,
sorry about that. Just a second.
That one was fun. See if I
I muted you, Michael. Sorry.
Okay, so if we want to have this new director or whoever the director is, then we would need to have the election in May. Our meetings are every 2 weeks. Basically, we need to be able to have an idea of who the candidates are. At least go through maybe one meeting where we can kind of talk through that, and then have the vote the following meeting. So we need to make a fairly quick decision if this is what we want. Alternatively, we could choose to say, okay, we're going to have the election in June or July. We just need to be deliberate about that choice. And we don't necessarily.
I think the idea of pulling it, of aligning it with the renewal time for the corporates is not a bad idea, because they're going to have just as much time to be up to speed for the elections as well, because there'll be changes there. That's not a bad idea. Sorry, I was telling James this privately. I kind of want to recuse myself from this discussion because there's an appearance of a conflict of interest here. So consider that my input, but I'll try and.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that whenever a new board member comes on, we have to do some onboarding, and that takes work. And getting a bunch at the same time would not that would increase the amount of work and be like a little bit more difficult. Like just from like an institutional perspective, like it would be easier on the foundation staff if we were onboarding, if we had like a month to onboard the TSC director before we had to onboard new gold and silver directors. We've gotten out of this a lot lately just because we had some of the people that got into those elections were already really well established or got voted in twice like Brian did. So it's been a little bit easier, but you could easily see a situation in which we have like 4 people to onboard at the same time, and that would be pretty difficult.
So let's do this. We have the issue in the GitHub repo. Let's not try to decide this today, but let's commit to making a decision at the next TSC meeting. Now the note on that is that TSC meetings will happen during the collaborator summit, so we need to kind of figure out what the scheduling on that is. It conflicts with the collaborator summit, and it's going to be in Berlin, and I don't know how many of us are actually going to be there. But let's say that we're going to make a decision on when the election is going to be by that next TSC.
So I think that we've got an issue there that not a lot of people have participated in. Could we maybe bring it to a vote for preference by month and just kind of list out the months and do it that way? So that we can do that. Yeah, I mean, then we'd reach a decision most definitely by that meeting, and then we would have at least a week or two to do an election and have all the nominees come through and figure it out by that board meeting.
Any objections to doing it that way? Okay, then let's do that. Michael, if you want to update that issue with drawing it out, and then one of the voting TSC members can go in there and actually call for the vote to make it official. Sure. Cool. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that closes the public portion of it. Jeremiah, did we get any questions?
Yeah, so someone asked, is it a good idea to start learning Node, how to manage routers, forms, such fundamental things? And because I have a project to achieve, to jump to a framework like Express, for example? That is the question. I did solicit that people should ask technical questions in the CTC meetings or in help, but this isn't like super technical, I guess. I don't know. It's up to us if we want to answer it.
I would probably just I'd direct them to the help repo at this point. So. If somebody else wants to take that question on. Not hearing any volunteers, so. Any other questions?
Someone earlier asked Node.js versus PHP, although that was already kind of answered in the chat.
Yep. Also a great question for the help repo.
Node.js. That's the answer.
Of course.
Just
okay. Well, let's go ahead and close the public. We do have a couple of, or at least one private issue to discuss. We'll go ahead and close out the public. And thank you everyone for joining. And for our next call is going to be in 2 weeks, although we're going to have to figure out the logistics for that because of the collaborator summit. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks for watching.